The regular meeting of the Jackson Board of Selectmen here. This is September 14th at 4 o'clock. Thanks for coming. We're glad you are here. And we'll start off with the way we always start off, and that's agenda item number 1. So we've got the Selectmen's meeting from August 24th, 2017, the minutes to approve or amend if they need it. John, did you get a chance to kind of look through these and look good to it? And find anything you want to feel like you need to amend with it?
Negatory?
No edits? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and accept a motion to approve. And
I will make that motion to approve those minutes.
And this meeting, I will second that motion. And probably a number of motions.
Today.
It's not here. I also went through, did not find anything that needed to be corrected, so all those in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. And we also actually had a public hearing on the same night that has a separate list of minutes, and if you weren't here, didn't attend that meeting or read about it in the e-news, we had a separate public hearing on that evening to decide to accept or decline some unanticipated revenue from the state through a highway block grant designated for road improvement purposes, and we did go ahead and accept those funds, and so that's basically how the minutes are written. So I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes. I haven't had a chance.
So moved.
That's pretty basic. Okay. Yep. I'll second those. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the action items between the meetings, we were going to clarify who could sign the Department of Agriculture form, and that was the form that was presented to us that had the signature line on it for the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and we were able to confirm that that was actually a selectman's form to sign, and we did sign that form. Hi, Betsy. And so that was done, and then you were going to work with Kevin on a tent form and a water heater at the town office.
And both of those too.
You're going to share those with us during your regular report then?
Yes.
All right, excellent. And that was it on the action items. Our upcoming meetings are scheduled through November. The next meeting here in September is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. That's September 28th at 4 o'clock. The October meetings are Thursday, October 12th at 4 and Thursday, October 26th at 4. And our November meetings are also scheduled. That would be Thursday, November 9th at 4 and Thursday, November 30th at 4 p.m. We hope you're able to join us for those meetings as well. And now we're on to agenda item number 3, which is our first of 2 public comment agenda items. Any comments from the public here to start with? Hey, B.
Oh, yeah.
Do not see any. Hi, B.
Hi, I'd like to tell you that Laurie Robinson, George Howard's daughter, was on the cover of a Time magazine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Wow.
She was-
I tried to get a copy, but I couldn't.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
This week?
Last week.
Last week's?
Last
Let's see
week.
if we can get a copy
Copy
of
of
that.
that.
That'd be interesting, so thank you.
Awesome.
Up for the building inspector's report. Kevin, where did he go?
He just shook his head about something, I don't know, he like forgot something.
Yeah,
I
he just
don't know.
went to the store.
He just took off, I don't know,
All right,
cold feet, I don't know.
no problem. Kevin's a pretty flexible guy, so why don't we be flexible with him and go right to new business. 5A, letter regarding helicopter tours in Jackson. Chief Curley is here to address that issue.
Well, Concerned Citizens submitted a letter to the town indicating that they had seen an ad or some kind of advertisement or notice about helicopter tours in Jackson. So, Julie gave me the information, and I ran down the company, and the company, it's an online company. It's kind of an umbrella booking company that, under the umbrella is like, radical outdoor activity. So the ad wasn't coming from an actual helicopter company, it's coming from a booking agent that will book like extreme tours, like ice climbing, in the mountains and whitewater rafting. And one of them was advertised helicopter tours in Jackson. So I called the company directly, and it wasn't a simple task because it seemed like it was a labyrinth to get to a real person, like many places, but I think that's intentional. And it was some call center in the middle of Brooklyn, and the gentleman that I spoke to said that we didn't have anything to worry about, because I told him, I said, we have no ordinance, you're not allowed to land helicopters in town for any purpose other than emergency medical. And he said, oh no, he says, if somebody books a helicopter tour in any community, then we check with the FAA, we check with the local and state authorities to see if we can land in the community before we even book it. So, which may be his throwdown story, I don't know, but they may not do anything after they get your credit card, other than get your credit card number. But I put him on notice that the town of Jackson has an ordinance prohibiting that conduct, and he was thankful for the information and took note of it, or said he did, and that was the end of the conversation. So I don't think we have to worry about being inundated with helicopter tours anytime soon.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, and that came to us from a resident, and I think it was the director that came across that website that was advertising helicopter tours that take off and land in Jackson. So thanks for taking some investigative initiative there, Chief, and looking into that for us. I appreciate it. Kevin, we just flip-flopped, but now we're ready for you.
I'm here, yeah, I had to get some paper.
Come on up.
That's quick. Nice and cool in here, boys, even outside.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, a little, heavy. I guess we'll run down these permits that we have first.
Okay.
Number one's for solar installation up at 3 Lee Hill Roof. This number two is for a remodel. Pretty major remodel on 892 Carter Notch Road. And then permit 3 is to replace some decks, 25 Alpine Drive. Set of stairs coming off them too, and upgrade the railings. Permit 4, there's a barn up there repairing the barn floor because it rotted out from the moisture underneath the barn. So they're gonna fix that problem too. That's at 5 for the drive. Extend master bedroom, add mudroom to front of the house, 24 Old Jackson Road. We got it replaced, building permit number 6, replace collapsed foundation. And that's at 297. Route 16, that's already all done, inspected. And actually the lawn's all seeded already and everything else. It's all, you wouldn't even know it.
Oh, yeah, that's the one we drive by.
Did you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Put together pretty quick. Permit number 7 was add a 5 by 10 entry, add a 17 by 8 foot by 15 foot sunroom, raise the roof pitch, extend chimney. Garage can be added later in a separate building permit, and that's at 2 stone 10. And then permit number 8. This was a flood. This is a house that got flooded. Replace and paint 2 feet of drywall. That's the lower portion of the wall. Replace flooring, carpets, and hardwood floors due to water damage. And that's at Unit 45. 45 Unit 2, Eastfield Road. It's up at Black Mountain. So that's basically it for permits. And then, I guess we had something about the water heater. And I talked to a couple plumbers, and I think the easiest way is they use so little water in this building just for basic washing hands. There's no wash machines, there's no showers. dishwasher, that stuff, so. They recommended just basically a 15-gallon water heater, small. And you can go anywhere from super efficient, which I highly suggest, to just a standard water heater. There's definitely a savings in electricity over so many years from keeping that, the water hot and not losing, whatever. There's less loss.
And the difference between the super efficient and the
Yeah,
standard?
price-wise, just for the units themselves, you're talking like $350 for a 20-gallon, and that comes with a 6-year warranty. It's electric water heater. And then you get into the marathons. I don't know if anyone remembers them. Co-op used to sell those. I think they don't anymore, but that was the hot water heaters they used to recommend. And they got a 15-gallon, that's almost $600. But if you look at the savings in electricity over, 3 to 4 years, you would get it back right from the more efficient. So that's what
What's the warranty on the $600 one?
I think that's 10 years old. Yeah, I think it is 10 years in here. Everyone's positive about that.
It's the same.
Yeah, and I know people have had those for pushing 20 years, where there's no way you're gonna get 20 years out of the steel tank.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, it's gonna get so little use. Is it an instant on type?
No, it's not, because just the amount of water use, it's just more efficient to have this. You had the instant
Tank, what are you talking
on.
about?
What's that? This is a tank, this has a tank, a storage tank, right?
15?
Because the instant on, that makes sense if you had a shower or
Right.
dishwasher or sinks and all that kind of stuff, using more water. It's just not worth it. And then you're into $1,000 for them. I know they're coming out with electric instant ons, but a lot of plumbers I talk to have not put them in. They don't have any experience with
Again,
it.
they're probably putting them in houses as opposed to, some places just washing hands.
Yeah, that's it, right, yeah. So anyway, that's my suggestion, and I did call down to, the plumbing store down there on Route 16, Smith Brothers. And that's what they recommend, just go with a small
Super
tank
efficient.
fill, super
15
efficient.
gallon?
Yeah, I think that's plenty of water.
Okay,
for-
all right.
And be a good idea to get that done soon.
Thoughts on that?
No, it sounds good.
Yeah.
Super specific direction on it, so if that's the recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's very much makes sense.
Great. Thank you.
And,
So he's got to go ahead to order? Okay.
anything else we have?
10 form?
Yes, and updated. That's the most updated one. And I added a section
Thank you.
there. Basically, there's like a section here in the middle, talks about tent size and does a tent that looks through the walls. There's just a lot of questions to either answer yes or no and fill in. And then asking for a site plan and attached drawings showing wind load and stake diagram. And it's kind of the same stuff the fire department asked for at that point. But then I think last week you asked about adding, will alcohol be served? It's just yes or no. And then I mentioned that there may be other requirements to serve alcohol, especially for the public,
Extended license.
or a tent that's at a hotel or whatever. And I also added about you do have plans to have sound application for like music or other, and it says please describe. And I added a sheet where they could draw a little map of just where the tent is referenced to buildings and other structures, and the sign and somewhere for my approval. And I was talking to Julie Hoyt about if there's going to be a permit fee on this. And she said that it was, administration work, so she suggested have some kind of payment. And I haven't come up with a figure. The fire marshal's office charges $35 if they go out and do an inspection for towns who don't have their own inspectors.
What is the minimum size tent that needs to have a tent permit
Well,
application?
the building code addresses that and was, put it this way, the fire marshal's office amended that to 400 square feet or bigger. And if you read the building code, it was 120 square feet or bigger, which is a very small tent, and that's kind of ridiculous. I agree.
Right.
But when you get into the 400 square feet size of the tent, it's getting quite big. And it definitely has to be properly anchored and safety and all that kind of stuff.
You know, all the ones we have that are, you know, seasonal, are all properly anchored and everything like that. That's not really been an issue with those.
Yeah, usually not. Sometimes they don't like to put the stakes in too deep, but they don't, because then you have to pull them out. So that's been an issue.
So how would we address somebody getting a rental tent from Lucy Hardware?
That's a good question. I think, well, I think for the commercial installers, once they get word that this town requires that, they'll hopefully come to town and get a permit. But the small independent or just someone having a function in their backyard, I mean, if we don't know about it, they're gonna go from like Friday to Monday and we won't even know about it unless someone says something.
Right.
But if there is some kind of notification where, like I said, that Lucy's, when they go to rent one, they'll say, well, you're putting in Jackson, possibly, they require a permit.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can go that route. So, I mean, you're gonna catch some people you're not.
Yeah.
And-
Certainly the ones in the park would require a permit.
Right, yeah. But, like the private weddings and stuff, sometimes, it might be a little bit more difficult to actually have them get a building permit. I think that was some of the problems the fire marshal did address. We can't be there all the time.
Right.
Deal.
Well, yeah, but I was just wondering, I mean, they've got a 20 by 30 tent, and that's 600 square feet.
There you go. Right, yeah.
It took less than 30 minutes for us to put it up this weekend in my
Yeah.
backyard.
There you go. So
So,
you got that before.
you know as well as I do, that if there's a selectman putting up a tent in his backyard, they're gonna hear about it, and I just wonder how are we gonna handle a situation like this? Does, even if I'm renting a tent and putting it up for 4 hours, do I need a tent permit application? Or how are we identifying who needs to get one of these permit applications and who doesn't?
Right, it's addressed in the building code anytime you put up a temporary structure, so there is no time limit. You're putting it up and taking it down, basically you need a permit.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
Yes, so it's basically written in the building code. already.
Again, not everybody reads the building code. I said, on a regular basis.
Two permits, Bob.
Yeah.
I think it's come down
Next
to.
year for sure.
I mean, I think I discussed this with Jay. It's come down to the fire marshal's office kind of wants to take their hands off it and give it to the towns. And if the town has a fire inspector and or fire chief or a building inspector, let them deal with it. And our hands are clean of it.
Okay.
And that's where this has come down. Oh, yeah, look at the actual bulletin. That's the bulletin that came from the fire marshal's office. And they even have a sentence in here that they, well, one of their sentences in here says, tents represent a unique situation where it may be difficult to separate the requirements of the fire and building code from each other. And right there it says, I think that's.
So Bob, keep in mind, everybody's gonna have to do 2 permits for tents, not just one. Now,
One for fire and one for,
well, one for a place of assembly if it meets the place of assembly regulations,
got it.
which a small tent that was a small tent at the art show that didn't require a permit from me because it was not over the certain amount of people to make it a place of assembly permit, but it did require a permit from him. So the difficult part here is going to be double permit and short notice. Like I got a call on Tuesday for a permit for a tent for Thursday
Yeah.
last week. So if Kevin's on vacation or something, is kind of, I don't know. I don't think it's going to go double. It seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Not much you can do about it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, me as a building inspector, I think same thing as Jay is, what happened in Lancaster? When something does happen, who's in the hot seat? It's not,
Are you two interchangeable? If one's out of town, the other one can do both? Not really.
Yeah.
I think there is.
Well, the fire marshal told me, talking to the fire marshal about it, you could combine it and have one permit for both. And both of you could do either inspection. The only stipulation from them, which legally, by state law, you cannot charge for a place of assembly permit. That's state law, can't do it. But you can charge for building permit. So it gets a little squirrely if you wanted to charge for a building permit for a tent, you can't legally charge, you can't charge for a place of assembly permit for a tent.
So keeping them separate makes sense, but are both of you able to?
Either you keep it separate or you don't charge for a building permit for a tent. I mean, you're only talking, what, 25 a year maybe.
And so, what's the process when somebody fills out an application? You wait until it's up and they notify you and you go out and inspect it?
If there was a fee, they would probably drop it off here at the town office, which they're open more than I am.
Right.
And then, Julie, especially Julie Hoy, can email me right away and say, there's a tent permit. I get up with that.
And you're on site to
Oh,
inspect?
yeah, I'm around town if I'm not here, so I
Yeah.
can definitely schedule and be around.
More than half of them won't be an issue because they're seasonals.
Yep.
There's just a handful that are gonna be
Spur of the moment.
spur of the moment. And I guess it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, this was all spurred by a safety issue
Yeah, sure
that
was.
had some serious injuries connected with it. So,
When do you think the busy season is? I would say obviously the early summer for terms of these
It's all year.
tents. Pardon?
It's all year.
All
I just
year.
did one last week. I got one to do next week. The seasonals are easy because those are in spring, but it's scattered.
Maybe worth putting out in the e-news one more time, just a kind of reminder that they,
Well, we got a list of
Yeah,
the
but
regular
it's,
customers, so we easily talk to them.
right, the regulars.
all right, and I do think an awareness campaign is probably makes a lot of sense. So, just to get the word out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, procedure, any questions?
Friendly reminder.
Yeah, well,
Are you gonna charge for them, you think, or?
well, it doesn't say anything here about that, and I'm wondering if, what your thoughts are about it, John.
How much time do you put in for an inspection
It'd
typically?
probably be an hour, by the time even if I was out of town, come here, grab paperwork, go to the site, look at it, write a quick report and be on my way, and it was probably an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Plus with Julie and Julia together. Just
Yeah, the inspection don't
with
take
the payment or whatever.
15 minutes to do the inspection.
It's
Yeah.
just
Takes
listen
longer.
to us like that.
Do the paperwork, then it does the inspection.
That's
But-
probably true.
I mean, it'd be a lot, not to talk you out of money, but it seems like it'd be a lot easier to not charge for them, like we do the place of assembly. And then, the paperwork involved, it's gonna take you longer to do the paperwork, to bill them, and then it's gonna do the inspection,
Right.
Well, I was actually wondering if it seems logical to maybe just, give this a year trial run and without charging, and then sit and debrief how the year goes and how many we got, and, theoretically, how much revenue did we miss, and if it really makes sense, given what we would have missed over the course of a year, to bother charging moving forward. Then we have some data to kind of look at.
20 to 25 a year, worst case, I think.
Yeah.
What I've done over the last 7, 8 years.
I mean, it makes sense for me that we're inspecting big tents that are up seasonally.
Yeah, and just my experience too, I've come across a couple, just with Goody, when I was doing like training with him, with electrical problems. And there was a tent there, they didn't even have GFIs on them. And
Right.
That's serious.
I remember that.
I mean, it's serious stuff.
So, I'm wondering if there's a tiered cost system or approach we could
Repeat,
take.
you know,
Well, if it's up for, you know, more than 48 hours or something like that, or, I don't know. I'm just.
Well, I think the ones that go up seasonal, they're good for the year, as long as they, you know.
Right, but I mean, I could see charging for that inspection because there's a lot involved. I mean, there was a lot of electrical work in that tent that you're referring to.
Right, yeah, that got into a whole other thing with the state electrical inspector and everything else, right, yeah.
And it makes sense to charge something that's that much of an operation, but for a tent somebody's renting and putting up in 30 minutes overnight,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to charge the same amount for the permit.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
I don't know, I feel good about the application. I don't know, I mean, we gave some direction on this the last meeting.
Right.
It seems like they inserted everything in there we were concerned about.
I like the idea of giving it a try run and see how, you know, how much it
For the
backs
year.
up. And maybe do a 6-month period, you don't have to do it for a whole year.
Yeah, just keep track of time and stuff that we put in,
Okay.
and, you know, get back to you on that.
So once this is in effect for a year, you can come back after 12 months and kind of give us a sense of how many hours it took and how much revenue it would have been if it was $25 a tent or whatever, and we could kind of figure it out from there. Was somebody's hand up out there? Did I miss a hand that went up? You're
I
right.
was just gonna add, it sounds like it's sort of part of the conversation anyhow, but even if you're missing out on the income, you're still saving time by combining into a single permit, so it may be a wash
Yeah,
just in that respect.
right. Is your permit pretty simple and straightforward? What are you out there doing, Jay? Measuring it out?
I got a check sheet that's carbon copied.
Mhm.
You go in, you walk through it, takes 15 minutes to look at everything, check everything off. They sign off, they get a copy, and then I write out a place of assembly permit.
Is he certified and qualified to do that, or does it have to be someone with your qualifications?
No, it
Okay,
could
so,
be,
I mean, cross-training would be a good idea.
I've already had it close at the,
okay,
anybody can do it that I assign to do it, I mean, Pat's done it for me before.
okay, all right. So we could keep them separate, but
If necessary.
not have to miss out. Okay, great. Well, let's see how it goes for a year then, and if you feel that way, John, and that seems to have some merit for you, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the tent permit application as is, with a trial run of no charge for a year to see how it plays out.
I'll make that motion.
Second? Anybody else out there have anything they want to weigh in on before we take the big vote? All right, well, all those in favor, say aye. Aye, very good. Great work on the permit. I appreciate the time you put into it. And let Lucy know, too.
I will. You know me.
All right, oh, I'm sure they
That's
will.
everything.
What else do we have?
Tents.
Are you here to talk about the driveway building permit application? That's separate out now. We've gone through that and we're all clear.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it, I think it's good as it is, separated right now.
You guys were just gonna review it, make sure you thought it was okay, separate, and then you know where to start using it.
Well, I think the consensus was that it made sense for us last meeting to separate them out, and, I mean, it's exactly as we talked about last week, so, you good with it, John? Did you have a?
Absolutely.
Okay. Want to go ahead and make a permit then, that we move forward with these two applications, separated out, moving forward?
Make a motion to move forward with those two applications separated out.
All right,
Get that?
I'll second that. Anybody have any thoughts they want to express on this one? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right, on to new business, down to 5B, update to personnel policy. And we are taking a look at a couple of different personnel policies. John, I know you've looked at these. There's a pay period and rate of pay policy recommendation here to add, and I guess I wonder if I just go ahead and read this out.
Sure.
Put it into the record, and then you can get a copy of it. So, the recommendation to add to the personnel policy, just to clarify, personal time off and vacation rates and pay rates would be full-time, non-salaried police officers will receive overtime after working 8 hours in a day or after 40 hours in any given work week. Part-time officers will be eligible for overtime pay as well. Pay rates will be changed to include pay periods and rates of pay. Rates of pay will increase at a flat rate of 3% per year for all town employees. This will also include selectmen, treasurer, and town clerk, tax collector. When a newly elected official takes office, pay rates will be as followed. Select chair, $4,500 a year. Selectmen, $4,000 a year. Treasurer, $5,000 a year. Town clerk, tax collector. If a new town clerk tax collector has to be appointed by the selectmen mid-year, salary will be negotiated based on experience. At the town meeting, following the appointment, when a new town clerk tax collector is elected, salary will be approved at the annual town meeting as a warrant article. If the current town clerk tax collector loses an election and a warrant article hasn't been established, the salary will need to be determined at the town meeting by adjusting the operating budget total up or down, depending on the experience of the newly elected town clerk tax collector. Moderator and supervisors of the checklist have negotiated $150 per election. Pay increases for the fire department are set by the fire chief. And so these were areas that we really did not feel were adequately covered in the personnel policy. So Dick weighed in on these. I think he may have helped draft some of this language, but he was supportive of it. John, I think you had probably had a conversation with Julie about it in the past, so you were somewhat familiar with it.
Absolutely.
A lot of this is just not necessarily changing much, but reaffirming where we are with some of this stuff, so it's covered as a matter of policy. Any thoughts, anything you want to add to this?
Just that, of course, in a town meeting, we can vote the bottom line up or down based upon, conditions that might warrant more or less than 3% if that was a stickling issue in people's minds on raises and things like that.
Right, exactly. Legislative body convenes and can recommend changes to this policy, that's for sure. And it's just meant to, I think, kind of clean up some gray areas. So, thoughts on it?
No, I'm on board with it.
Okay. You want to make a motion then to add those two things to the personnel policy?
I will make that motion. We'll add those to the personnel policy.
All right, and I'll second that.
Discussion.
Any burning desires out there to add to the conversation? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, very good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And,
Thanks for the work on that, Julie.
yeah, appreciate that. It's always good to clear things up when we find murkiness. Next up is 5C, new business, winter sidewalk, and how we take care of the winter sidewalks and safety issues connected with how the winter sidewalks have been cleared and maintained over the winter months has become an issue here. And so
put out to bid.
Do you want to start off by introducing yourself and?
Been to a select, so just say what I wrote.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, my name is Micah Burkhart. I'm a new Jackson resident, been here for a year, and we live up on Thornhill, and it feels really weird being in front. And walk down. I have 14-month-old twins, so you probably see me pushing my kids around in a red stroller all the time. We walk loop 3 times a day. So we got to know the loop really well, and we run into a lot of problems in front of the snowflake in the winter, because the plow, there's no sidewalk there. So it becomes really dangerous, and we end up having to take the kids, off the sidewalk and on the road, and oftentimes there's cars parked on both sides of the road, so then you're on the side of the cars, and then it's just getting narrower and narrower. So I had written to the selectmen asking if there was a way to change that and to change the plowing protocol or shoveling or, I've been in towns before when I lived in Colorado that you had to personally, get rid of the snow in front of your residence or your business. So I don't know if there are options there. So, but it would make a really big difference. And there's a couple other young families who just moved to town and also live in walking areas. And for us to walk to school and things like that, it's going to just become a bigger deal. Do you want me to mention the other thing or wait?
Sure.
Okay.
You got it,
We have a dog, and we walk the dog around all the time. Now you guys can all wave at me. But, so, we're supposed to pick up dog waste in Jackson, but there's no place to put it. And I'm approached a lot by tourists in Jackson asking me where to put their dog waste, because I'm there a lot. And so we don't have receptacles, so I want to know if there's any, move to do something like a dog waste pickup, so that we can follow through. And I think that for a lot of the tourists, they kind of walk up and they have this baggie of dog poop, and they're like, where do I put the dog poop? And I'm like, there's nowhere to put your dog poop, we bring it home.
I got an answer for that.
All right, that's good. Those are the 2 things I wrote.
Excellent. So I think the first issue was why, we felt if you had strong feelings about the safety conditions on that sidewalk, that it would be best to have those expressed in a meeting. And so, the sidewalk issues, I think, John, right, have been kind of an ongoing issue with us, and that is, and I'll be corrected from the back of the room if I'm wrong, but that sidewalk is in our right-of-way to maintain, and due to maybe some misunderstandings in the past or whatever. We got a couple of challenges with the sidewalk. Number one, the owners there had expressed I think, a preference to not have it addressed in the past, and I think that it was kind of avoided. It was never an issue at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and probably should have been, because it is a safety issue when that sidewalk's not maintained. It's a little bit tricky to maintain that sidewalk around that loop, because we don't plow that road. The state plows the road. So we go and maintain the sidewalk, and 10 minutes later, the state comes by and plows a nice big berm back on the sidewalk, and so it's always a tricky issue. It's a little bit more complicated than it would be if we plowed. So trying to coordinate that issue is something that I think, in the interest of public safety, is something we're committed to do, and the gentleman that had cleared those sidewalks in the past had a machine that was made for that. The machine wasn't around town. His deal was he would be here within 24 hours of the last snowfall, and that was pretty much met for the most part, but conditions can be tricky. There's snow, and then there's snow, and then there's freezing rain, and then there's conditions that 24 hours later make snow removal very difficult. He wasn't able to do another contract anyway. So we have contracted out with a local firm to maintain the sidewalks this year, and so we're really confident that the conditions, are going to be good and acceptable from a safety standpoint. And I really think, John, we need to have it's incumbent on the board to really direct that those sidewalks within the town right-of-way be maintained on a regular basis. I think that's the piece that we need to step in and assert, but I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, I said that issue around the snowflake was that you couldn't blow the snow onto their property. That was one of the main things. So what can you do with it? You can't put it back in the road. You can't go right the other way.
As soon as it's water, you can't do anything.
Right, exactly.
There are always cars there.
Right. unless you do it at midnight, you know, so that's not gonna happen. So.
Right.
But that's obviously, you know, one of the big issues with that was where are you gonna go with it,
Right,
you know? Other than melting it, maybe.
yeah. How's snow removal on the sidewalk in that stretch really gonna look on a typical 6-inch snowfall, Jay?
Fair and dry.
There's a lot of variables, depends on the time of day.
Right.
If the snow stops at the right time and you get your regular plowing done and you can get there, it'll be easy. Certain times it won't. Like Pat said, the hard part is once the cars fill the area in front of Snowflake, it can get difficult. We think we've got a way we're gonna do it that'll solve the fact of the snow blower blowing snow on the Snowflake. So hopefully that'll be solved, so it won't be an issue with them anymore. Due to the fact that he's gonna have me plow it, and all my plowing is pretty much in Jackson Village, we should have better service than you've ever had before, because it's right here.
Right, you're right there.
It's gonna be right here. You're not waiting for Gene to come from Center Conway or something. So our expectations is it's gonna be better than it's been in the last few years. You know, it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be there all the time because it's just not always possible. But we do expect it to be better because we're throwing a little more money at it. So we do expect it to be better than it's been.
And yeah, it's gonna be kind of hopefully that we can work together and make it better. Everything's here, so we're not dependent on a completely outside source that comes in when he can. If it's 24, it stops snowing at 9 a.m. and he calls me the next day at 6 and says the stuff's broke, and we're expecting him to come, and then it's sat here, and then it's pretty, you know, it just,
Firmed up, set
it's
up,
gonna be,
yeah.
it should be easier.
There will be times that you probably walk to school and you'll be walking.
Of course, yeah, I mean, I understand, living here.
We can do, like I said, we've got couple different things we're gonna do that should make it a lot better than it's been.
Yeah.
Can we efficiently sand it? That's kind of one of the big issues with Pat.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, what's
Necessary when it comes.
it's sanded fairly often. I mean, it's just a matter of, I mean, you know, if there's ice on it with a lot of rain in the winter, I mean, it's like it's a daily thing, you gotta sand it because it melts down.
So, you know, we have been thinking a lot about it, and we're trying to come up with a plan that, and I think that just to stay away from that whole section of sidewalk at the beginning of the winter means that it's almost something you can't address as winter goes on because it's so built up and frozen over, and it just is a problem that has then gotten away from you. So we intend to be more proactive with that this year, and I think it's going to be a much safer situation. So, and as always, I mean, we invite anybody's input as winter goes on, and you feel like it's something that can still be improved on, we'd love to hear from you for sure, or any of
It's
the
great
other
to hear that there's a
regular
change,
users.
that it's gonna improve, that's fantastic,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're confident it will.
Yeah.
Good
Andrea,
question. I remember it was 10 or 12 years ago, I think maybe that Bruce Hill asked what could be done about the sidewalk along the Jackson Falls, and everybody was saying that's pretty impossible.
Yeah, that's,
Is it still pretty impossible, or are there any better ways one can deal with it?
we don't have equipment that's
It's too narrow.
made for that width of sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I don't know if there's equipment out there that would do something like that, but I don't know that it would be cost effective. It's a good question, but I think we're focused right now on taking care of the loop, and hopefully that can improve on the results. And Jay,
The difficult part of it is, the only way you do a really good job on the sidewalks, talk to Andrew down in Conway, is you gotta have somebody right there the whole storm doing it.
right,
right,
they have a
For a
dedicated,
mile and a half of sidewalk, you just can't,
for
you can't do that. I mean, I don't know, Conway must do 10 miles. You know, it's $100,000 for the machine that they use.
Right.
So it's really tough to get it when you can get it, the best that you can.
Right.
Sometimes that's an hour after it stops snowing, sometimes it's 18 hours after it stops snowing.
Right, right. So we hope that it's noticeable, the improvement's noticeable, and we look forward to your input moving forward on that. And we appreciate you taking the time to come here and point out what you believe is a safety issue. And let's talk about the dogs in the spring.
That sounds great. I didn't know if there was something underfoot or there was so there's.
Well, again, then who's going to clean it, who's going to
Oh, I'm sure
maintain
it's
this
just a
thing?
fair
And so there are a number of things, but we'll ponder that one.
Okay.
All right, fair? Thanks, Micah.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate it. Yes, James.
I was just going to say that what we see in front of our place, they're doing a very good job keeping the snow off the sidewalks. And once we convinced the guy that he didn't have to blow the snow onto our sign, he does that, he gets around it. So what we see is they're doing a very good job.
Good.
So I'd like to give a little compliment. Yeah, and they kind of, and yes, you know, like you're saying, you know, you do the sidewalks, and then all of a sudden the state comes by and, you know, pushes it all back. So you only do so much.
Right.
But I think they're doing a good job. Or last year. We'll see what happens this year.
It's going to be stupendous. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. All right, ready to move on, John?
Yes, I am.
We've been asked to consider participating in the 2020 census efforts. Julie, you want to kind of paraphrase? We talked about, this is a voluntary census in 2020, and we took one look at it, I think, a couple of weeks ago or something, and said voluntary, why bother? But I guess there are some advantages to participating in the voluntary 2020 census, and that would be that keeping our census up to date allows us to kind of be eligible for grants, receive our fair share of tax dollars back from the federal government and such. And Julie, in order to participate in the 2020 census, thank you, Micah. How did we come up with the head count again?
Well, we pull the information from our avatar system.
From the
Which has-
avatar.
I mean, they're looking for names, addresses of everyone in town.
Okay.
So, you know, it has confidential information. I haven't read through the whole thing of how the process is to get the information to them,
Yeah,
but they say it's secure and
okay.
Heard that
All right.
whatever that is.
What do you think? Any thoughts on that, John? or-
I haven't looked at it yet, so I
Okay.
haven't made any thoughts on it, but
It's not due for some time, so you guys can ponder it.
2020.
Why don't we make a point of trying to look into this between the meeting,
Okay.
have conversations with you if we need to figure out how this would actually play out, and
Throw it between the mailboxes.
yeah, give us an opportunity to get any questions we have answered and take it from there moving
Okay.
forward. Hey, got a trustee of the trust funds withdrawal request here, John, and I'll read the request. And look to entertain a motion to approve these requests. Board of Selectmen would be requesting the following withdrawals from the trust funds. $1,575 from the Police Department Equipment Expendable Trust Fund to Tritech Software Systems. The invoice is dated August 21st, 2017. $41,138.78 from the Road Reconstruction Capital Reserve Fund, 0064, to Pike Industries, invoice dated August 30th, 2017, and $2,823.65 from the Town Office Equipment Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund, 0047, to go to DMI Dell Small Business. Date on that invoice is June 20th, 2017. Entertain a motion to,
Make a motion to approve all those withdrawal requests.
Very good, and I'll second it. John, did you need any details on any of that?
I've seen those things before.
Okay, great. All those in favor of approving the withdrawals from the trust funds as the motion indicates, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up, Betsy Harding. You want to come up, Betsy?
Thanks, and yes, when I asked to come to the board.
Got your message at 9:30 last night, and I said I'm not going to call you. Thank you for leaving it.
Okay, well, when I asked, I didn't realize that Scott would be able to attend too, so maybe both come up and just fill you in.
Here, Scott. That way you won't have to shout.
Okay.
Well, but you still may shout, I don't know. Yeah, okay.
Well,
Floor is yours.
thanks. Scott and I have been involved with housing issues for quite a while, both by attending programs with the Mount Washington Valley Housing Coalition, and there's also a group that was formed in Jackson right after town meeting. Some people came forward and said they'd like to discuss housing issues. So we have a small committee, we're calling it JHOT, for Jackson Housing Opportunities Team, I think it's called. And over the various months since then, we've learned about a program being offered by Planned New Hampshire, which is a group that actually came and met with many town folk in 2004 about the village and how the village might be configured. We had a town hall that wasn't big enough and wasn't so useful as it used to be. We had a tricky barn that prevented the school from being able to put up a gym and wasn't really useful for anything but storage. So we needed a bigger library. Our wonderful little library simply could no longer hold the books, and so they gave some ideas on reconfiguring, which we never actually used, but it opened up ideas and made people think about what the possibilities were. And we have the same opportunity now, I think, where a lot of people feel that there's no real place for seniors to be. To have housing opportunities for younger families would be good. We feel often that the grammar school is shrinking in size, even though we have built it so that it can house 75 kids. We don't have half of that. So there are a lot of issues that have come up about housing and what the opportunities would be. Well, it turns out that there's a grant opportunity, again through Planned New Hampshire, where the town could apply to be able to hire a consultant on planning issues and housing ideas to come in and work with the town to determine what townspeople feel about things, what they'd like to see, and how we might be able to make it work, whether it's through zoning ordinances or other sort of outside-the-box ideas. Do you want to add to that?
No, I think that you pretty much covered it, and we have tried, and we did put together some zoning how many years ago to try to incentivize some affordable housing that's in conjunction with development, but that was never taken advantage of, and we aren't even seeing the developments that something like that can piggyback on anyhow. There's the accessory apartment stuff that has gone through, but more of that is probably being shunted towards Airbnb than additional rental opportunities or year-round rental opportunities. So that's sort of where we're at the moment.
Scott and I wrote up a proposal to go out to planning officials, planning companies, and we had 5 responses from organizations that would be interested in working with Jackson. They range in price from $25,000 as the bid, all the way down to a little bit below $6,000. So our interest was in finding an organization that we feel will really work well with a North Country town, a Jackson type of town. And that's hard. We've had interest from people all over who've worked, very far away from New England or in southern New England and so on. we found an organization over in Plymouth that the person who's principal of it used to be one of the planners in the Office of State Planning, the Energy and Planning, and now it's called Strategic Initiatives. So he knows a lot about the North Country and working with citizens who have concerns about all sorts of planning issues. We would like to have Jackson hire him. We're not sure of what your process would be, who would sign the application if this goes through, how we need to do it with a 25% match. Do we do that as part of the planning board budget? Do we do that as a separate line item? So, and does the town have to vote on whether to receive the grant? How does that work? So we're in the dark on some of these things and look for your guidance.
And as far as that matching grant is concerned, there is another grant that we can apply for that would cover some portion of the matching grant. So to make the math easy, if we apply for $20,000, Plan New Hampshire would require a $5,000 matching funds from Jackson, but some portion, probably around, somewhere around half of that could come from this secondary grant. So to have $25,000 to spend on a consultant in Jackson really would only have to come up with something like 10% of that.
And you have $2,500 within the planning board budget that could be utilized for this?
Well, each year, we have somewhere around 3,500 or so in our budget, I think.
I think we dropped it last year to 25.
Okay.
I have to double check.
So it might need a small increase, but we don't spend much money in the planning board. Don't have a lot of reason to spend. And so the match, let's say we ended up putting down 2,500 as our match.
Yep.
That could come from our budget, I would think.
Yep. So, John, any thoughts or questions at this point?
I'm really just learning about it, so I don't really have anything yet, and I'll think of something I'll
So
do
did
that
you
probably.
say, do you have to, is it one of the grants where you have to pay the full amount first and then get reimbursed?
Yes,
Yes.
so we'd be paying, I don't know, quarterly basis or something or other, and each time we submit a paid invoice, they'd pay us back.
Now, on the whole, like, so we might have to have 17,000 or 20,000 or whatever and then get reimbursed.
Yes, and
It would depend on how we're being billed by the consultant, I guess. I'm
Right.
sure we
We
can
probably
appreciate
bill in
that, so
quarters or
that we're
something.
not getting, it's not one big chunk.
and as to whether there is the possibility that the grant, we have to submit by the end of September, and they give us an answer by the end of December. So let's say they say yes in December, but we know that it's got to maybe be approved by a town warrant in March. That's okay, they will allow that to be a contingent, a grant contingent on getting town approval. So we know more about what the whole procedure is going to be than we do.
Yeah. That's debatable. But if it's something that's contingent upon voters approving it, then that makes all the sense in the world to me. I was having a hard time getting wrapped around how we would approve funding for this kind of a use without the voters having had an opportunity to weigh in and say, we support this use of funds, even though by and large, a lot of it's going to be returned because of a grant. I think it would be probably worth it for us to get some of these questions that we have and clarified and run by town council as far as utilizing these funds. Are they going to require the match up front before the town meeting, or?
No, nothing would be before the town meeting. Let's say the town meeting needs to approve the match.
Yeah.
Then once we have that signed that is approved, everything goes forward.
I think they need to approve the match and just kind of approve the use of funds to carry the work, right?
So when you say approve the use of funds, would that mean that, say there was no match involved from the town, that we were just getting a grant to cover the whole thing?
Right.
We still need a town vote to accept that grant and then use utilize that grant?
That's a great question for Peter.
Right.
I believe so, but, and primarily because I think we're going to be carrying some of that because the town's going to be billed and then we'll be reimbursed through the grant. So there will be
We're on the hook.
town funds that will be utilized just to carry it even for a brief period of time. I mean, I would want that I would want to hear that town council's opinion on that, and we could stand up if we advocate for something like this at the town meeting and really make it clear to the voters, by the time the dust settles, here's what this means to the town.
And I don't know whether it might be possible that if we had, say, 30-day terms from the consultant, whether we could then be reimbursed or have the
Yep.
invoice paid within that 30-day period so that the town actually never had to release any
Yep.
funds.
So, and this is the grant.
Yes, that's the way we've written it so far now. Because we would be hiring a specialist in all this, I would expect that person would take a look at that and say, you really ought to say it this way. So we'll make some changes probably.
Okay, sure, it's a draft.
And then, of course, the question is who signs it? It says it's got to be signed by somebody fiscally responsible for the town. I would assume that's you guys. But if it comes out of the planning board budget, maybe it's Bill Terry. I don't know who signs it.
Yeah. Another when we run by Peter, for sure. I think that if it's coming from the town, you're probably right about that. Although you two are named as the contact persons and are actually submitting the grant, along with Steve Whitman. And you've taken action, just like we have. So there's a series of questions like that, definitely, that I think we can get answers to in short order in time for you to submit your grant in a timely fashion.
Are you locked into anything by submitting that?
That's what I was going to ask.
No.
It's
No.
contingent on the voters' approval,
In
is how
March.
you worded it, and I want to have that confirmation on that as well. Certainly if there's going to be a selectman signing it.
So do you have you can email me some questions and then I can send it to him, see if
You
you
bet.
guys have any more questions and then I can
Yeah,
You bet.
send it on to.
But there'll be no hiring a consultant until after March's
Right.
meeting anyway, no
Yeah.
matter what.
It's just a question of, okay, if there's going to be a warrant article, do you have to put the whole amount, this 20,000, say that, raise it, and then say this is where it's coming from?
Right.
It could be that.
It might be
You
that
have to do
wording.
it that way, I'm not sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Which we do
Yeah,
on warrant articles
right.
on a regular basis, so.
I'm pretty sure you have to put, I think you have to put the full value of it and say, but
Right.
it's getting reimbursed
Right.
Right.
from this.
And by then, we would know if the grant was successful or not.
Right.
Yep.
So that you've got a good 5 or 6 questions on record with the video, and so we'll see what we can do to get those questions answered in short order through town council and keep you in the loop. And typically, we should be able to get those answers by, within a week,
Great.
by midweek, and get back to you so we
Bless you.
can move forward together.
Great, because I'm a little worried that your next meeting is the 28th and this is due the 29th.
Right. Right. Yeah, I don't think we'll see how it shakes out.
Okay,
We can always call a special meeting
okay.
with 24 hours notice and address this issue once we have some concrete answers.
And the planning board will be weighing in tonight,
Okay.
so they may have some additional ideas that we haven't thought of.
Sure.
That's a good idea.
Right, but I say this is the time right now to get all those questions in line for Peter, and he'll get to work on it, and I think we'll all be glad we've got some clarification of this.
And I would just add that the overall sentiment to this is to really maintain a vibrant community in Jackson. And we see for the community in Jackson to be the way we want it to be. There needs to be a cross-section of ages. And we're seeing that, we're just becoming a much older and older community over time. And
Most of the people that are moving here are retired as well, so.
Love the vision, for sure, so certainly support it in concept. So we'll see if we get the details worked out. Yeah. Okay.
Bob, I have a question.
Yes.
The $20,000, how much does Jackson actually have to pay? $20,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And how much do we actually have to, is it only going to be $2,500? Is it going to be based on $10,000, $15,000, $20,000? I mean, what is the bottom line that the town's going to have to pay?
However much we are looking for in the grant, it's likely that we would only be paying something like 10% of that grant amount. With the consultant that we were considering, it was 17,
Yeah.
but plus
17,550 was the bid from the consultant that we think is the best. And so I think that means the 25% match is somewhere around 4,700 or so. And Jackson might end up spending 2,500, but I don't think it'll be any more than that. We've been told that we're likely to get a supporting part of the match from New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. So we're expecting they pay somewhere around 2,100, 2,200. So we'd work it out with them as to who pays what, but likely Jackson would pay a little bit more than New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority.
Another question is sometimes when we've asked for grant money before, because we are a very wealthy town, we get denied it. So would that money be more spent if this chapter, whoever's doing this, if the money went to a different town possibly rather than to Jackson? I mean, that's...
Well, Scott and I met with the person who's the director of Plan New Hampshire, and she's familiar with what Jackson's done in the past with some programs there, Plan New Hampshire, that they had here and so on. So she thinks we have an excellent chance of getting approval. But they only approve 3 towns a year, and if they get applications from 10 towns that need it more than Jackson, we'll get turned down.
But you said that we're going to know this before we even put the town report together. You're going to know the exact dollar amount.
Yeah. And the other question I just want, the other statement I wanted to make is Jackson just got 9 new kids into the school this year.
Great.
So it is growing.
Good.
That's wonderful.
And we just have some more new people into town that would also like to have a preschool in this town. A lot of towns in the country are now putting preschool into their incentive to have more young people moving into town because of that. And at the last school meeting I had, there was about 10 people that showed up at the school meeting, all encouraging preschool here in Jackson. So there's other outlets out there. I'm going to bring it up in the meeting tonight to tell you the truth. There's other ways of bringing young people into town.
And we're not just focused on young families. I mean, that's really important to the town, but also it's seniors. We've got
I know that.
plenty of people aging who might want to downsize, might want to go to a house that won't take much exterior maintenance and so on.
So the specific answer to your first question, this draft grant has a total proposed project budget of $18,550. $46,3750 would be the cash match, with $2,500 coming from the town of Jackson, contingent on a March 2018 vote, and $2,137.50 coming through the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. So that's what they're trying to coordinate and put together on that. So lots of questions, and I would absolutely encourage anybody who has any other thoughts on the proposal to get your questions to Julie by close of business Monday, and we can make sure we get them to Peter in a timely fashion and get some answers, so we're all moving forward with a clear vision.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
You bet. Thank you. All right, cemetery trustees. You guys want to come up, or you find there? Or?
I don't think there's that much detail.
Okay, yeah, right, you want to take down a shed?
What we have is a 10 by 12 shed on the corner of the property, on the northwest corner, I guess, of the cemetery, which we're not using anymore.
There's nothing in it anymore. We don't have any equipment. We got a bid on fixing it up, painting it to make it look good, but it's expensive and we don't use it.
Yeah.
And we could use the space for more plots,
More space.
which we need.
Okay.
Looking at the building itself, the outside is really in tough shape. It's T111 siding, which should be replaced. It needs a new roof and paint and stuff like that. The bones of the structure are fine. As far as foundation, I don't know what it's probably sitting on cinder blocks, I have no idea what's under there. But if the town wanted to lift it up and take it somewhere to use it for something else, you might have a structure there you could work with. Or you might just want to tear it down and do away with it.
And is this something you're looking to do, what was that?
Put down another board?
Is that something you're looking to do before winter?
No, just
Whenever.
whenever it's convenient.
I would hope to get it done before Memorial Day, because that's when the focus really is on the cemetery, and we want to put our best foot forward.
Yep, okay. All right.
Was there a question about the highway doing it?
Whoever can knock it down or move it. I don't know if anybody. Julie Quaid said, would it be something that the town might be interested in using?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can have
Pat,
Kevin and Pat look at it and see if there's potential there to relocate it, or if the easiest thing for everybody, if it is cinder blocks, it may be the easiest thing to just take it down. But we can look into that at some point within the next couple of weeks and have a report on it at the next meeting, if that works for you time-wise. It's no real sense of it. I was just trying to feel, is this something you wanted done before winter or what? But we'll put it on the agenda and get some folks to weigh in on it, and certainly carry it over onto the agenda next meeting and follow up on it.
maybe put it on e-news and see if anybody wants it to. I mean, if it is suitable to move, I mean, it might be suitable to move, but, you know, if they find out that it is worth, you know, maybe it's worth something to somebody.
Sure. We'll get Pat and Kevin to weigh in on that and carry that agenda item over for next meeting, and by then we'll have some answers, and that might be a really good idea. Put it on e-news if there's potential and we don't want it. Fair enough? Great. Thank you. Next up, we have a recovery walk, 9/17 FYI document, and that is the third annual Take a Walk in Our Shoes for Awareness, Treatment, and Prevention. And this is a walk that is going to happen on White Mountain Highway to Schuler Park. So as this goes from the hospital to Schuler Park. And then there's one at the Freiburg Fairgrounds. And so just an FYI to read that into there. There's also a motorcycle ride. If anybody's interested in following up on the walk and recovery walk, we've got the information here at the town office. And next up is the Hazardous Waste Day. This is the final reminder of the Hazardous Waste Day. Once again, it is Saturday, September 23rd.
Yeah. Is there the hours there?
8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at the Conway Transfer Station.
Perfect. So
10-gallon limit per household. Local contractors don't transport waste to the event. Prior arrangements can be made for local contractors. Other than that, it's our annual day here for the transfer station in Conway on East Conway Road. Hazardous Waste Collection Day, 10-gallon limit. I'll be there. Old business, nothing on the agenda. Public comments? Another round? You sure? You got two, or are you just being peaceful? Go ahead.
I've probably missed a few meetings here, but I really need to know what happened with the pickleball thing over in the, are they ever going to do that?
There was actually an attempt to put pickleball courts up at the Jackson Tennis Court, and what they did instead was to strike an arrangement. This is all I know, is that they struck an arrangement with the Christmas Mountain Sports Club, and they converted their tennis courts to pickleball courts and made some sort of a mutual partnership arrangement for memberships to cross over between the two. And last I heard, everybody's happy. I don't ask any
I never figured out what pickleball was.
Did you?
So they're not going to do
Yeah. Yeah.
I have not played it.
But I think they've got some world-class courts up there, so if pickleball is something you'd like to look into, that may be your opportunity.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for asking, James.
Just wanted to close that up.
I appreciate that. Any other final comments before we move on to non-public session for RSA 91A32C? Matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board. Accept a motion to enter into non-public session.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thanks for coming, everybody. Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you at our next meeting.